especially on this important constitutional duty that the Committee of Finance did. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with them that it is important that even as we struggle with the latest audited accounts, Mr. Speaker, we must ensure that we consistently increase allocation of funds to counties. Mr. Speaker, the proposal to have county equitable shareable revenue at 4495 billion is very important, Mr. Speaker. And I think 495 billion, we are looking at a situation, Mr. Speaker, where we need to factor more of the resources to go to counties and ensure our counties and the people in the villages are able to get services within the reach at the village level, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 495 billion, for example, Nandi is getting 6.9 billion. If this is approved, Nandi will get more than 9 billion, which will be very significant, especially in the next third generation of devolution. And for some of us, God willing, who will be there, will ensure services are devolved and people can benefit directly from this additional funding, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we cannot, and I think there is a misnomer in this country that you need constitutional change to be able to increase allocation. I know a number of us here in this House are aspiring to lead county executive in the near future, Mr. Speaker, and therefore it is important that the country knows that you don't need a constitutional amendment to increase allocation. I think what we need as a parliament, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure we fast-track latest audited accounts, because you can see the next budget will be a trillion in terms of trillion in trillion shillings, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I really want to commend the committee. I think that is the only positive thing that I have seen the committee overworked on it in this report. Mr. Speaker, another issue that I wanted to comment, so the additional funds to counties will be very critical. Will the bursaries, issues of feeder roads, Mr. Speaker, issues of water, issues of ensuring that early childhood development teachers, ECD teachers, and ECD infrastructure are developed within our counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another point I wanted to make, the second point, Mr. Speaker, is on the issue of agricultural sector, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, where us come from, predominantly the North Rift, Mr. Speaker, and specifically Nandi, over 90% of the great people of Nandi, and mostly the North Rift area, Mr. Speaker, including your region, rely heavily on agriculture, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, you are aware at the moment, Mr. Speaker, because you also in your county plan maize, that sadly, the fertilizer prices have been shooting up astronomically. From 2,700, Mr. Speaker, to 5,500 per 50 kilos of fertilizer. Even as we go to the next planting season, we can see the short rains are there, Mr. Speaker. In my county, we have sugarcane farmers, we have tea farmers, we have maize farmers, we have coffee farmers in Nandi. And you can imagine buying a 50-kilo bag of fertilizer at 5,500 from 2,700 after the subsidy was removed. So, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected, since agriculture is one of the key functions that was devolved, that the issue of national fertilizer subsidy program should have been included. We are aware the pricing of maize in our is not as envisaged, because, Mr. Speaker, we expected our maize 50 kilos bags at least to go up to around 3,000 to 3,500, Mr. Speaker, as opposed as 2,700 that we are having at the moment. So, Mr. Speaker, I think there is a consistent agenda to undermine agriculture sector as a whole, because agriculture is what most Kenyans in rural areas depend as a form of economy, Mr. Speaker, from even dairy farming in terms of inputs. And that is why some other time I had, Mr. Speaker, somebody saying in this country, why are we still importing eggs from Uganda? We are importing eggs from Uganda because we can't support our agriculture, Mr. Speaker. The answer is very obvious, because you can't ask the question. And in that meeting, Senator Ledama Olekina was seated in that meeting, and somebody was saying, why are we importing eggs from Uganda? Yet they know very well, Mr. Speaker, that they can't give funds to the agriculture, Mr. Speaker. So the answer is more than obvious that we need agriculture, Mr. Speaker, that the funding Even, Mr. Speaker, when we are talking about, we saw issues of Mr. Speaker, when the President was talking about post-COVID recovery. Maize was not mentioned anywhere, Mr. Speaker. So you can't blame that we are importing eggs, we are importing maize from Uganda or any other. I can see there is a war, trade war that is coming between Uganda and Kenya because of the imports and exports here and there. The agriculture sector, Mr. Speaker, we should really push to ensure that we increase funds, that we continue, Mr. Speaker. Another danger that is undermining agriculture in this republic, Mr. Speaker, is very simple, that the national government is still doing the functions that have been devolved, like livestock, fisheries, agriculture sector, water and sanitation and irrigation, among others, Mr. Speaker. These are some of the things that have already been devolved under Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya. So these clawback clauses that the national government, Mr. Speaker, continues to undermine will not ensure that our counties, these functions are devolved, Mr. Speaker, and it is very sad that there is a reduction in allocation of agriculture sector from 75.7 billion to 63.9 billion, representing a decrease of 15.6%. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we should consistently, because if you are not resource more to the counties and to the counties in terms of agriculture sector, Mr. Speaker, it means our people who largely depend on agro-economy within our structures that we have, Mr. Speaker, it will be very hard, Mr. Speaker, to be able to even provide food. And you know, Mr. Speaker, when the prices of food go up, the inflation automatically will go up. So if we cannot manage the pricing, that we should minimize the inputs, especially in the food production, and maximize the output, then we can manage the inflation rate, and therefore the cost of living will automatically, Mr. Speaker, come down. Mr. Speaker, another issue that I wanted to note there is on the issue of, Mr. Speaker, the issue of health sector, Mr. Speaker. I think even with this post-COVID season, we still have a challenge where issues of vaccine, and you know there is over-reliance, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of donor. And somebody has questioned, Mr. Speaker, the shelf life of some of the COVID vaccine that we are receiving in this country. And you remember the Minister of Health at that time was threatening Kenyans that if you are not vaccinated, you cannot access government services, which is a clear and blatant violation of the law, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, even as we rely, I think, Mr. Speaker, Kenya and Africa have what we call poverty mentality, that even with the donations of vaccine that we are being given, people are now questioning the shelf life of such vaccine and ensure that the country can be reopened. Of course, with the fact that and even at the level of the county level, Mr. Speaker, at least we should have at least by region, Mr. Speaker. You can see Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and I want to congratulate the management of Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. I saw they were number one, and then secondly was followed by Nairobi Hospital, Mr. Speaker. I think in as much as Moi Teaching and Referral, Mr. Speaker, it is almost serving the entire of Western Kenya, Nyanza, part of Narok, all the entire of Rift Valley. All the cases are being referred to Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. But, Mr. Speaker, if we were able to build the referral hospital like Coast General Hospital, ensuring that it's properly functional, we have Kenyatta National Hospital, we have another one, maybe Jaramogi Oginga Odinga General Hospital, maybe in Kisumu to serve the Kisii and Luo Nyanza. Mr. Speaker, it would have been very better. So this means we should allocate more resources. But I think the danger we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, is the clawback clauses, because essentially, Mr. Speaker, the issue of health sector has been largely devolved, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of, I have seen there is an allocation of infrastructure. Of course, I can confirm to you, Mr. Speaker, there was an ambitious program of ensuring that we have infrastructure. But for example, Mr. Speaker, the infrastructure projects within Nandi County, for example, have been stalled, Mr. Speaker. For example, from Kopere all the way to Timborwa, Mr. Speaker, we have one from Chemuswa all the way to Kaptel Danger. We have another one from Kaiboi all the way to Chepterwai to Western Kenya, Mr. Speaker. We have another one that has stalled. Many of the road projects, even the expansion, Mr. Speaker, that opens North Rift and Western Kenya, like the one from Kapsabet, Eldoret, Chavakali, or Kapsabet, Eldoret, Kapsabet, Nandi Hills and Awasi areas. They are very narrow, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, it needs expansion. Most of those projects, Mr. Speaker, especially road infrastructure projects, apart from even water projects, Mr. Speaker, have been stalled. Even one between Lesos and Moi University, Mr. Speaker, the one that we are having between Nandi Hills and Imaki Town, between Nandi Hills Town and Imaki, the one from Nandi Hills Town all the way to Savani in Aldai sub-county, Mr. Speaker, most of those projects have been stalled. And I hope the next government, Mr. Speaker, when it will implement this budget, at least they should be able to ensure that they fully complete those infrastructure. And I know it is not unique to Nandi that most of the road projects and infrastructural projects, Mr. Speaker, have stalled. I think the next budget cycle we should factor in money to ensure that we complete, so that you don't need only to see Gorofa roads only in Nairobi, like the one we are building, the expressway, or only, Mr. Speaker. I think that goes without saying. Mr. Speaker, the fourth point is on the issue of CBC. I know there is still a big challenge, but I think the junior secondary schools that need to be started, they need support. We saw the national government trying to allocate more, Mr. Speaker, but it goes also in line with the school feeding programs, Mr. Speaker. And I know I don't know this country, Mr. Speaker, because we are being told over 2.5 million Kenyans are facing starvation. I know there are rains, but the point that we need to drive home is that this school feeding program, we need to ensure that the children are kept in school, especially, Mr. Speaker, where they come from, the regions that we know they are facing challenges. But as a country, Mr. Speaker, we are not serious. When you come to the North Rift now, we are like throwing away maize, Mr. Speaker, because of the poor pricing that we are facing. Yet it is shocking, kilometers away from all the way from Bungoma, where Senator Moses Wetangula represents my county, Senator Professor Margaret Kama represents, and where you also come from, the maize are ready, the prices is very poor, but somewhere in Moyale or somewhere in northern Kenya, a Kenyan is dying because of hunger. It is embarrassing, it is a shame as a country that we must be ashamed, that we need to put in place policies, Mr. Speaker, that will ensure that our children are kept to school and we have school feeding programs and increase the funding that we have, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think on UHC, the issue of universal health care, Madam Speaker, not the change on the chair. We want to say that universal health coverage, Mr. Speaker, even in Nandi County, as we talk today, the staff that was hired under UHC are yet, Madam Speaker, to be paid up to today. I think there's a big challenge, Madam Speaker, that we need to look at and ensure. And I want to thank Senator Kibiru's committee for noting this, because there are many young people that are working under UHC that are yet to be paid. But the UHC and universal health coverage should be more like is it the NHS of the Britain and even in the US. I think Senator Ledama can be in the position to know much more, because he has lived in an efficient system, and like us, we are using to an inefficient and effective system, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another point that I wanted to note is the Public Debt Management Office. We are being told the word on the corridors of parliament, or the corridors of power. I see some newspapers write corridors of power, that there is an attempt to increase the public debt ceiling to 9 trillion. I'm happy, I'm among the few senators, including Senator Enoch Wambua, that we refused at that point to vote for the increase of public debt. And you can see our wisdom. You know, many people imagine that we are anti-government, we were being rude, we were not being sensitive. But the money that was being told was being borrowed to settle commercial loans is yet it was never done. And you know, the National Treasury, Madam Speaker, the National Treasury has never been sincere with providing with timely information with the issue of public debt, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I really want to say that we really, Madam Speaker, I hope my time will be held, because
my student, you're aware how you ask for point of order. How come? No, I'll allow you to go straight because you are there. Yeah, we'll hold the minutes. But I didn't see your signal at all.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is always a good thing to have a speaker as your teacher. It's always a good thing. will understand. Madam Speaker, I was standing on a point of order, and I'm sorry to Senator Cherargei. Madam Speaker, I just saw my friend, Senator Mwaura, walk into the chamber, went to the minority side, and just crossed to the majority side. Madam Speaker, that's what I saw. If I saw something wrong, then I stand to be corrected.
Yeah.
Orderlies can check that.
My student, I think you were distracted by a very senior person who was sitting next to you. But he did go to the, yes, thank you. Yeah, Senator Cherargei's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's good. And I want to note the presence of, I was not there when Senator Mwaura was readmitted back to the House. And I want to welcome him back, Madam Speaker, and tell him, let him carry all the burdens to the Lord, as the Bible says in Matthew. And it is good to see him back, and we hope next time he shall be able to get elected so that he does not have to depend on anybody to be in this house, just like the rest of us, and we wish him well. Madam Speaker, I was issue of the public debt, and I think I was saying there was a wisdom for some of us to reject them. And of course, when any attempt or imagination or any dream to bring back to raise the ceiling to 9 trillion, because the National Treasury has never been sincere. If they were sincere, they would have done what they promised Parliament to do by providing timely reports, by ensuring that the money that they wanted to borrow was to ensure that they sort out the expensive commercial loans, but they have never done that. So the intention, and you can see the effect on the economy. You have been told, Mr. Speaker, for people who are experts, Madam Speaker, sorry, is that the first charge will be on the public debt. And you know, Chinese will come calling. The road to Shanghai will be real. And I've been told Kenya Airways pilots have been told to fly very fast at the highest speeds to some of the Chinese cities. So we'll be going in the same speed if we are not careful as a country. You remember the president promised the country at some of the interview with some of the leading media stations that he will provide information on the port security and Kenya boat. But Mr. Speaker, I think the next president, of course, God willing, will be Dr. William Ruto. Mr. Speaker, is that the biggest challenge will be to restructure and be able to settle the issue of public debt, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, quickly on the pending bills. Madam Speaker, you and me come from almost the same region. It is sad. Most honest people, either in our counties, have been contractors, but they have never been paid, Madam Speaker. Every county. And I don't know how we'll resolve this issue of pending bills. There are many people who have lost their property because they used as a collateral security to do some of the county projects, Madam Speaker. I think as a Senate, we have failed them, Madam Speaker. And it looks like when a new governor comes, the other contractors are just left out, the new contractors are taken when a new governor, and I think, Madam Speaker, the pending bills issue, we must agree, there are many Kenyans in our counties that continue to suffer. Nandi is one of the counties that still had pending bills. And it is shocking, yet the National Treasury, it is a secular, to resolve some of that pending bills, Madam Speaker. And then, Madam Speaker, to accelerate economic and job creation, the National should develop stimulus package for the small enterprises. And this is essentially bottom-up economic approach, Madam Speaker, that we need to ensure that in the financial year of 2022-2023, God willing, the bottom-up economy should come up, because we want to ensure that the people at the lowest level, Madam Speaker, are able to access Madam Speaker, the issue of job creation. We cannot just be saying, kasi mitaani, we shall employ 200,000 youth. Let us have a structure, because where I come from is more of rural economy. Where Senator Stewart Matsai, retired judge, comes from is more of rural economy. Yeah, kazi ni kazi. I know people, of course it's kazi ni kazi, but because we cannot be saying kazi mtaani. I agree, kazi ni kazi. But, Madam Speaker, we must have a structured way, because where you come from is more of rural economy. Where Senator Sakaja and also Senator Ladama comes from also more rural economy. Can we say it's only clearing the roads and bushes when we can maybe, for example, support with livestock issues, Give 1 cow per youth, maybe in Narok County or in Nandi County, give maybe 1 cow per youth so that we can say kazi ni kazi, Madam Speaker. So we really need to agree on this issue of just waking up one day and say kazi mtaani. And where Senator, I know is more somehow semi-urban, semi-rural, semi-urban, Machakos County, where my sister, my big sister, Senator Gavindu Mutama comes from, is that it's also a big challenge. How do you... But, well, of course, Senator, I think Senator Wetangula is distracting me, Madam Speaker. So what I really wanted to say is, for example, Machakos County is a unique county because part of it is part of the metropolis of the city. So how do you address as far as to the other side, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, I really want to say that we must agree, but finally, Madam Speaker, finally, is on the issue of medical equipment supplies. This continues to be a public ripoff. And I don't know why it exists here. Because we had we had put a zero last time, Madam Speaker. This medical equipment I can see now is 5.2 billion. Why, what is it? And the report that was tabled, I don't know, I can't see any member that was here, Madam Speaker. 1 minute only. 1 minute so that I can finish the trail of thought, kindly.
Can you finish?
Yeah, thank you, my neighbor. So, Madam Speaker, I really want to say in one second that there was a report that was tabled before the Senate, Madam Speaker, that said this scheme was a public ripoff. Why are we still supporting it, Madam Speaker? Therefore, Madam Speaker, I therefore oppose and reject this report in totality. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Matsayo Stewart Mochiro.